Nuts? No nuts. Legumes? No legumes. Green apples and strawberries? No fruit. Quinoa and brown rice only? No grains at all. It's enough to make you crazy. How do you decide which anti-candida diet to follow? Hi, everybody. I'm Ricky Heller from rickyheller.com, where I share with you recipes that are refined sugar-free, low glycemic, egg-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, and yeast-free. And I want to talk today about, for anyone who's about to start an anti-candida diet or thinks that you might need to, how do you determine which one to follow? Because like anything else, there are so many choices out there. And I get asked questions all the time. Is this one better than that one? I heard that you should eat this and you shouldn't eat that. How do I know which diet to follow? So I like to think of it in very similar terms to buying a car. Just because your best friend ended up buying a Tesla, does that mean you buy one too? Lucky best friend. Well, no, right? You need to think about a whole host of factors that are connected to what you're going to buy. Are you going to be driving on a straight and narrow road, or is it going to be a twisty, turny road? What other features of the terrain are there? Is it straight and flat, or is it hilly and undulating, right? Are you going to be on a paved city road, or are you going to be on a rural, gravelly country road? What about the number of people that you need to have driving with you? And so on and so on and so on. So it really depends on your needs and your terrain. And similarly, as simplistic as that sounds, I think the same applies to choosing an anti-candida diet, because it also depends on your internal terrain. Each one of us has potentially thousands of probiotics, other microorganisms, all kinds of critters living in us, and that changes the internal terrain in terms of how we're going to approach that. So just to give you another example, I tell this story in my book, Living Candida Free, about how one of my best friends and I ended up having our wisdom teeth out at around the same time when we were around 16. And we both had surgery. We both came home, with the chipmunk cheeks all swollen and in lots of pain. And she went on to take about 6 or 8 222s, which are heavy-duty painkillers that are filled with codeine. And I think those are not even available over the counter anymore these days. Whereas I went home and I probably had 1 or 2 Advil over-the-counter medication, and I was fine. I went about my day. Different people reacting differently. Or similarly, if my husband and I were to come down with strep throat at the same time and go to the doctor, it always amazed me that we would both get the exact same prescription medication prescribed to us for the same duration and the same number of pills every day. Now, to me, that just doesn't make sense. He's 6'1" and weighs 195 pounds. I'm 5'4.5" and weigh pounds. It doesn't make sense that we would both be treated with the exact same treatment and that it would work equally well with both of us. And so I think the same thing is true when you're thinking about your anti-candida diet. We can quite positively say that there is no one diet that's going to fit everyone. We each have our own unique individual DNA, but as I said, even more so, what's going on internally is different. That's why I think, grapefruit seed extract, someone may say to me, that's what did it for me, got rid of my candida. Someone else may say, well, it was oil of oregano that did it for me. Why? Because they have different microorganisms living in their bodies. Maybe they have different strains of candida, but there's also all those external factors that you need to think of. What is their history? What other illnesses have they had? What's their external environment like right now? What was it like in the past? What's their mental state like? What are other co-infections happening in the body at the time? So that if we could look at all those things, yes, we could pick an ideal anti-candida diet for that one person. But when you look at it, those factors will never be the same for everyone. I was always surprised when there are certain actors, let's say, out there who have these massive fan bases and massive followings. And I remember thinking, with Julia Roberts, for instance. For me, watching a Julia Roberts film is agony, agony. Whereas I know most people adore her and just think she's fabulous. She has a fan base. I'm not in it. You think of all of the diverse actors out there, from Julia Roberts to Helen Mirren to Kristen Stewart to Zach Galifianakis. They all have huge fan bases, and yet they're so, so diverse. So Candida diet out there, I'm very, very skeptical. I've seen videos on YouTube, like I'm sure you have, of people who come out and say, I eat 100% raw fruit, and that is what cured my candida. Likewise, somebody else might say, I moved to a keto diet, high fat, 70% or more fat in my diet, that is what cured my candida. Or someone else might say, so-and-so's method worked for me, another expert's method worked for me. And you know what? I actually think that for those people, yeah, it probably did work. But I keep in mind what works for me. When I tried increasing the fat in my diet, no, did not work at all. I had huge flare-ups. When I increased the fruit in my diet, no, huge flare-ups. So I think like any other health issue, we kind of have to be our own guinea pigs. That's my impression of a guinea pig, in case you're wondering. We have to be our own guinea pigs and think about what works for our body and for us individually, because as I've said before, nobody else is going to care as much about your health as you do. And so really, we have to be our own best advocates. So that's what I would suggest. Take a look at the various anti-candida diets out there. Try to find one that resonates with you and your lifestyle and your personal ethics and philosophy of life and eating and food, and then try that one. And if it doesn't work after a little while, make some changes, tweak, adapt, and then move from there. When I developed the anti-candida diet that I decided to follow in the end in 2009, I scoured the internet and the bookstores for all the different diets. And frankly, what I did was I just picked what I liked from each of them to give myself the broadest range of food choices possible. And that's the diet I followed that worked for me. And that's the diet that I write about in my book, Living Candida Free. So if you want to see what I did, you can go take a look at my book, and I'll put some links up here for you and down there if you're watching on my blog. And I also talk about the process that I went through and how long it took and all of those kinds of things. But for each person, I would never say that what worked for me is going to work for you. I think every anti-candida diet has a very specific core that is non-changeable. So for instance, you'll never find an anti-candida diet that says you can eat sugar. They're all sugar-free, they're all low glycemic, they all remove yeast, they all remove highly moldy foods, and so on. So there's that core base that you must always adhere to, but beyond that, I think there's lots of leeway for what will work for different people depending on your body, your lifestyle, where you live, and so on. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope that will help you decide what you need to do to help treat your candida and clear it for good. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel, and I will see you again next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.